And folks, we are doing a multicast today, actually a dual cast on Freedom, Free Thinking Radio, yes, and RevolutionRadio.com. Folks, donate to Revolution Radio. They are 100% listener-supported. Free Thinking Radio, I do believe we have a tab where folks can donate as well. But with that, Arla, you have the stage. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, no problem. Thank you guys for inviting me to come on. It's funny, I do a program with a good friend of mine, Alex Midnight Walker, every Wednesday night. And so I'm used to being on the radio, but I'm a little nervous today, and I don't have any idea why. But I'll just start with how it started for me. I was 6, almost 7.
Sorry.
And I was playing at my grandmother's house, my Cherokee grandmother's house, and I was outside playing in the dirt, which was pretty normal for me to do, and close to the woods there. And I was busy scratching and playing in the dirt, and I heard someone walk up, and I thought it was my grandmother, and so I looked up, but it was a little juvenile male Bigfoot. And we just kind of stared at each other for a little while, trying to figure out who the other one was, pretty much like kids do. If the kid comes up to somebody, on the playground or whatever, and you just kind of eye each other like, who are you? And we did that for a little while, and then he just turned around and walked back off into the woods. And I jumped up and ran in the house and asked my grandmother, told her what I'd seen. And I said, what was that? And she just looked back at me and said, what do you think it was? She didn't go into a long explanation of what it was. She let me think about it. And that was pretty much the way I was raised, and most of our elders taught like that. I mean, we were taught to think for ourselves and not always just let everyone else tell you what to think. So I count myself very lucky in that. After that, I spent all my time in the woods. When I was little, I was in trouble constantly because I would run off. I played in the woods. I always felt very protected when I was in the woods. I was never, ever afraid. And that was, pretty much my whole life. And then when I was about 15, there was a bunch of us kids that ran around together, and where I grew up in Henrietta, Oklahoma, everyone called this being the woolly bugger. And so this group of friends and I would spend our weekend nights out looking for the woolly bugger. And one night we had gone to between Okmulgee and Henrietta, and there was a road that you could take, and you went down this road about a mile, 2 miles, and then you turned back towards the river and went down this road. And you drove to a gate, and then you could go through the gate and walk down to the river. And that's where the woolly bugger, people would say that's where the woolly bugger was. And so one night we had done that. It was probably, 10:30 or 11. I don't remember exactly. It was late. And we had gone down there, and we were almost to the river, and we heard this very loud sound like this, and we stopped, and we all looked at each other, and 3 of the kids took off running back to the car. And this one friend and I were looking at each other, and we were like, oh, wow, it's the woolly bugger. and we wanted to go closer and try to see if we could find them. But the other 3 kids were in the car and getting ready to leave us. They were screaming, "Come on, let's get out of here." So we decided we better take off and go with them, or they were going to leave us, and then we would have several miles to walk back to get into town. You know, from the time I was little and my first encounter with one, I always knew that they were there. You know, it wasn't an overriding thing in my life. Even all my life up until now, I've spent a good part of it in the woods. Like I said, I've always felt protected in the woods. I've always known that something was there, that Bigfoot was there somewhere. I just always felt like there was something watching over me and taking care of me. And so I never had a fear at all of being in the woods. Like I said, I stayed in trouble the biggest part of my life because I was always going somewhere where I shouldn't.
Right. So basically all of this started from then up until now with just a chance meeting of one of the younger folks of the woods, basically. Yep,
he just, where this is actually, it was out by Colton, Oklahoma. And you've got the Colton Bottoms, and you've got the rivers, and there are lots and lots of sightings all down through that area. Of course, when that happened to me when I was little, the term Bigfoot was not even coined. So that tells you how long ago that was. And, you know, it was never a big discussion about them. It was always they were there, and we knew that they were there. A lot of people didn't talk about them and wouldn't talk about them. But, you know, growing up the way I did, I always knew that they were there, that they did exist, and there wasn't a problem with them existing, so I did not grow up with a fear of who they were. And so I don't carry that fear now because it was never something I had to begin with.
Right. And, you know, Arla, I would like to interject here really quick and say that for folks who were listening to the Free Thinking radio stream, we started a couple minutes earlier than we should have, so we didn't get the intro in that we were looking for. JP had to restart the servers, so we are now broadcasting from our servers. We are streaming, and for those of you who did not hear the introduction, we have Arla Collett Williams from Oklahoma of Cherokee descent on the air with us, and from the age of 6, the people termed as Bigfoot, the hairy folk and or the first peoples of our nation, of our planet, actually. We have her on the line with us right now, and with that, Arla, please continue.
Okay. Where I'm at now, I've been here for about 25 years, I guess, and for the last 25 years, I've known that they were around. It's never been something that I felt like I just have to know everything about who you are. You're there, I accept that you're there, and it was just a fact of life. So, I've never had a problem with knowing that they were there. For the last several years, I've had a much closer relationship with them just for the fact that I am free to go as I choose and spend as much time as I choose being in the woods, and I get to travel around the United States and go to places and meet with people who are having sightings or interactions with them. So I've been able to learn, a whole lot more. I knew about them. I knew about their lives growing up, and that they were just another people out there that were living, that I was always told that they were another us. And so they weren't exactly like us, but they were another us. And so, it was just never a big issue for me.
Okay, now, can you get into a little bit, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat or something, folks. Can you get into a little bit of how you met your teacher, Kashima, and are they also of these people?
The teachers, there's a little bit of difference in them. They are considered to be ancients, which you would say they were kind of like the medicine people of the Bigfoot or the Sasquatch, or whatever you want to call them. The one thing I would like to interject right here is Kashima says it's not so much what you call us, it is the respect with which you use when you call us something. They have names for themselves too, but we get so caught up on a label or a name, or this is a derogatory term, Bigfoot, that's not a good term to be calling them, or whatever, the hairy people. For me, as carrying Indian blood, a lot of Indian people didn't want to be hairy. So I could look at that as maybe a derogatory term. But these are just terms that we humans tend to want to use to express who they are, or put a label on them so that maybe we can understand them more.
Right. Well, what do they call themselves? What do they call themselves? What kind of names do they have for themselves?
I've heard them being called many different things, and they're like tribal people. Different tribal people from different areas have names for themselves that we might not call them. So I've heard different people in different parts of the United States say that they were told they were called the Moo Man. I've heard the term Anyaki. And Kashima's lineage is the Shamuna people. And so, they're like tribal people. They're going to be called different things. You can't lump them all into one basket because they are similar, like Native people are, but they do have differences too. They have differences in dialect, they have differences in attitudes, in some of the ceremonies that they do, but yet, they are still that connection of them being what we've always called Sasquatch or Bigfoot or whatever. I've been told that they are comfortable with the term primal people. Primal meaning from the beginning, not meaning primitive or wild or anything else, but from the beginning.
Arla, if I may just jump in here for a moment and say that they've never given me a name to call all of them. That's why I call them the hairy folks. What they've given me instead is they've either given me individual names, and I learned early on not to ask their name. I asked, what do I call you? And they might give me their real name. They might give me a nickname that they go by. But that's been my experience.
They're very good. They're very good at that, and that's kind of funny too, because a lot of the old Indian people will do the very same thing.
Yes.
I see, so many similarities in them and tribal people here in the United States, and I'm sure that comes from many, many centuries of them living, side by side. So. But back to Kashima. Kashima came one day. I had gone to actually a gathering in Lincoln City, Oregon. Grandmother Agnes Baker Pilgrim, who is the head of the council of the International Council of 13 Indigenous Grandmothers, who are women of all indigenous tribes around the world. It's not just Native American. They're from all around the world, and they have done things very significantly in doing things for their tribal nations or the tribal medicines or in whatever area that they're in. And I had been out there. We were gone about a week, I guess, and I got back on a Saturday night, and Sunday morning my sister-in-law calls, and she said, let's go eat. I want to hear everything that happened while you were out there. So we left to go eat, and we went to a fish place here on the south side of the lake, and they have a little paper magazine that they put out of things going on around the lake. And I picked one up and thought, well, I'll read it later. So I got home, I laid it down on the table, and I didn't pick it up. And then that evening when I went to bed, I was awakened about, 3, something like that, by this horrendous smell. And it was like, oh my gosh, what is that? It's awful. And my husband at the time, he had been very, very ill. And I thought, oh my God, something's wrong. And I jumped up and went into his room and checked on him. And it wasn't him. He was asleep. And I thought, oh, good grief, what on earth is the smell? And then I thought, oh my God, my dog. Because I have a large dog, a bull mastiff, and I thought, oh, good grief, she's sick. So I found her. She was sound asleep. So I went back and I sat down on the edge of my bed, and I thought, what in the world is this odor? And I couldn't get anything. And then it went away. And so I laid down and went to sleep, got up the next morning, and was talking to a very good friend from Kansas, who's actually my adopted granddaughter. And I told her, I said, gosh, this smell woke me up in the middle of the night. It was horrendous. I've never smelled anything that bad before. It was awful. And she said, well, man, I wonder what it could be. And I said, I don't have any idea, but that's probably the worst smell I've ever smelled.
Can you give us like was it a combination between wet deer, wet bear, and maybe sewage plant? I don't know.
Okay. If a dog is really bad sick, and it was a mixture of almost a skunk, but not really a skunk, but just like someone was deathly ill, awful, spoiled, yucky smell. That's about the only way I can. My first thought when it woke me up, I smelled it was, oh my God, he's really bad sick. Something's really wrong here. And so it wasn't pleasant, to say the least, but we couldn't figure out what it was. Debbie and I couldn't. So, I just said, well, okay, no big deal. Well, later that day, I picked up the paper or the little magazine I got, and I was reading it. And in it was an article on 3 sightings of the Bigfoot on the lake. And I was like, oh, wow, that is so cool. That's such a cool story. So I called my friend Debbie back, and I said, there's the coolest article in this magazine that I'm reading, and it's about Bigfoot and these 3 sightings, and, we were talking about it. She went, oh, my gosh. And I said, what? She said, oh, my gosh, the smell. I said, no, that's not Bigfoot. I've never smelled that smell before when I've been anywhere around where they've been. And she said, it has to be. It has to be Bigfoot. And I was like, no, I don't think so. I don't really think so. So we passed that off. That night, the smell woke me up again. And that was a Monday night. And so I immediately got up and went outside to try to see if I could find where that smell was coming from. And I couldn't find it anywhere. I kept looking, and, I was looking out the windows for a while, looked outside for a while, couldn't find it. And then it just went away. And I was like, Bigfoot. Okay. So I went back to sleep. Well, the next day, I was doing my prayers, and I was out in the back where I go to say my prayers, and I had my head bowed and was in prayer, and I heard footsteps coming up to me, and I was like, who's walking up? And I opened my eyes and looked up, and he was standing in front of me. And I just looked at him, and he looked back at me, and the only thing he said was, I am Kashima. And I was pretty much overcome. I mean, this is in the physical. This is not a spiritual thing that's going on. This is him coming in the physical and standing in front of me and saying to me, I am Kashima.
Did he say it verbally? Did he say it verbally or telepathically?
Yeah. No. He said it verbally. He spoke it verbally. I was pretty much overcome at that point. And so I dropped my head again and began to say prayers again. And I heard him begin then to walk away, and I looked up and he was gone. And that was my first meeting with Kashima, who is what is called a teacher. A lot of people have a problem with that as far as people in the Bigfoot research world, but this was not a spiritual, psychic, whatever you want to call it, thing that happened. This was a purely in the flesh and blood physical thing that happened. They do speak English. I talked to a lot of people that are having interactions with them, and hearing them speak English. They speak native tongues. I've talked to people who have had them speaking Spanish, Choctaw, all kinds of languages. Scott Nelson, who is a linguist, has done a lot of work with their language. And because of how they speak so quickly, our ears don't catch what they're saying, but if you slow down what they're saying, you can pick up English words in what they're saying.
Why do you think they're speaking so quickly? Is it because they're vibrating at a faster rate than we are?
It's their nature. Okay. I'm going to say a word to you. This is a Cherokee word. And it is Donadagohoin. Donadagohoin. What I said to you was, I will see you again. Now, saying that, and a lot of our speakers rattle that off pretty quick, and if you're not knowing what you're listening for, you won't catch what they're saying. Lung capacity, as far as they are concerned, creates sounds that sound maybe forceful, more forceful than what they really are. Another word I used as an example is a Cherokee word, and the Cherokee word is "oh." But if I said that word "oh," that would sound a lot more forceful if my lung capacity was a lot greater. And what that means, "oh," means yes. So we have to stop and think when they're speaking in that language how they speak. It's a lot more forceful. They have a heck of a lot more lung capacity than we do. So it's going to sound different. Now, they also do have their own language and dialects that they speak that would not be English, that might be different from area to area, too. But to say they're multilingual doesn't even address, how much that they are. But you have to stop and think. These are a people who have lived alongside many, many, many different nations and languages, and somewhat have retained a lot of them and have been used from time to time.
Do they have a way that they communicate other than passing down from generation to generation? Do they actually have places where they set up for their young to teach them their ways? How do they go about doing that?
Well, they're in family groups. And so they are taught in these family groups. Do they have a setting where this is school and we're going to teach you these things? No. People used to be taught in daily life, and that is pretty much how they teach. It's how we're taught before we're put into school. We're taught on a day-to-day basis of how to talk. How many little children whose parents are multilingual, those children become multilingual long before they ever get into a school setting. They're also taught the things that should be done and shouldn't be done just in the day-to-day living. One of the coolest things about the Bigfoot people is their caring of their young. A little one is never, ever left alone. There will be a juvenile that is taking care of that younger one, and then there will be an older juvenile that is watching both of those, and even possibly an older juvenile that is keeping tabs on all of them.
Oh, geez, I've been there, done that.
Yeah. So the way that they care for their children is everybody is active in caring for the children. They're not just, put out there on their own. And this is something that we've lost in a lot of ways. Now, I grew up, I was the oldest of all of us kids. And as each child came along, it was like, you're designated to watch all these kids. You were just that older sibling, and, you kept up with what everybody was doing. And that's pretty much the way that they do it. It's interesting. I was out on a ridge where I go sometimes, and I was sitting out there. I just like to go and sit there, and sometimes I'll take my lunch and spend the day. And I had looked over across to the other ridge, and I kept seeing something, and I thought, what in the world am I seeing? Well, I stopped and then just began to watch, and it was a little one, a very small one, sitting, playing in the dirt, where on this ridge, which had a lot of trees and greenery and stuff, this one whole area of coming up this ridge to a little flat area had been worn smooth of vegetation. And, that would have been just from sheer traffic, of coming up that area. There was also a spring up in that area. And I began to watch and could tell this little one was playing in the dirt. They're moving around because it would scoot one way and do some things, and then it would scoot the other way and do some things. And I had texted one of my friends and said, this is cool. I'm watching this baby on the other side of the ridge over there, just kind of scooting around. I don't see anyone with this baby, and I know that it can't be that way. So my friend and I were talking about it, and they said, well, why don't you wave and see what happens? So I stuck my arm up, and I waved real big, and as soon as I waved, immediately a bigger juvenile come out to where that baby was and sat there by the baby, and they started watching me. Mm-hmm. And so I sit there for a while and watched them, and I thought, I'm going to wave again. So I waved again and said, hello, Here come a bigger juvenile and scooted them all off. Because, I know they were thinking, oh, my gosh, we've been seen. We're going to get in trouble. We're not supposed to be here. Being seen, even though I had seen this young one before, it was still that, we're going to be in trouble because we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, or, that kind of thing. They scooted all of them right off into the trees and brush and stuff, and then I didn't see them.
Did they wave back to you?
No. No, they didn't. And, it's like, oh, man, I waved and, hollered at them, and now they're gone. But, that just illustrated to me, for sure, which I already knew because I'd seen it before, that there is always somebody there watching what's going on, regardless of if you see them or not.
Right. And with that, I would like to take this moment to give a station ID for Revolution Radio. Folks, they are 100% listener supported. Please hit that donate button for Wolf Revolution Radio. We are also being streamed on Free Thinking Radio and wolfspiritradio.com. And here in a little bit, Arla, Thomas sent me, it's entitled The Long Version, and it's a recording of you and a friend outside having a little witness party as to some of these folk being out there in the woods. And I sent it off to JP, our producer in Scotland, and he will be playing it here. But before we get to that, I would like to build up to that part, and then we can have JP play it for everyone to hear, where it sounds to myself, and others, that they're mimicking owls. Is that correct?
Yes, but actually they don't mimic. They know the language. They know how to communicate using those things, owls, crows, coyote. They know what the meanings are behind those things. I mean, they live there with them in the woods. So it's more than just mimicking them.
I just want to say one thing, Arla. Gotcha. How many times have we played that recording?
How many times have I played it?
Well, how many times have I played it?
Oh, good grief, I have no idea.
I got you
Thomas
again.
loves that audio. Thomas loves that audio. And you know, I still listen to it, and I go, oh, my gosh, I cannot believe that they did that. I never expected that they would do that. Oh, my gosh. So...
Right. And you know what, folks? I would like to say really quick before I forget, I would love to give a shout-out to Mr. Dave Corso, without whom the show would not be going on the air today. Dave, I hope you're feeling better. And with that, Arla, please continue. Oh, by the way, at the top of the hour, would you folks like to take a break? Is there, Thomas or JP, anyone who has any music, Joey, that you would like to play at the top of the hour?
Yeah, I'm good for a song. Sure. I don't know about Arla. You good for a song at the top of the hour?
Yeah, I'm fine. Whatever you guys want to do is super.
Okay.
Oh, sure. It'll give time for people to, you know, visit the facilities and or get something to eat, drink, what have you. So please continue, Arla. I would like to move on now to how they brought you into their realm, into their families, and how they started to, how your teachings began.
The teachings began with the intensive teachings began when Kashima came. I already had knowledge of them and kind of how they lived and those type of things, but the teachings came, escalated, I would guess, when Kashima came. And he is quite the teacher. I have people ask me all the time, how do I get a teacher? And I always tell them, be very careful in asking that question, because the one thing that you're going to have to do when one comes is to look at everything that is within you. And you are going to have to figure out if that is to stay there or if that is something you have to release and move on to something else. I have two words that have been taken out of my vocabulary so far. One of those words is the word hate. I didn't use that word a lot. I didn't, say, oh, I hate that person, or, oh, I didn't use it like that. But I targeted myself with it. When I would do something, or, sometimes when you do something that you think is stupid, you go, oh, I hate it when I do that.
Right.
And so he asked me one day to think about how that felt when I would say that. And was it a good feeling that I was getting from saying that? And I wasn't. I was, in essence, saying I was hating myself. And so I gave that word up. It's not in my vocabulary. Do I slip sometimes and it creep in? Oh, yeah. But it's funny because immediately, if that slips out of my mouth, it's like, whoa, where did that come from? So, I don't use that word. It's not in my vocabulary now. And the other word, which is funny, actually, is the word old. And the reason he asked me to quit saying that about myself is this funny thing that I would do when I would look in the mirror. And I would say, old woman, I don't know who you are. And so one day he asked me, he said, how do you feel about yourself when you say you're old or old woman or whatever? And so I thought about it for a while, and I was using it not in a good way. I wasn't being respectful to myself in using that word in the way that I used it. Yes, it's just a word, but I wasn't using it in a good way towards myself, and so he asked me not to use it anymore. And so I don't tell people I'm old. I just don't say that anymore. Yes, I've lived many years, but in our society, we have taken that word and made it to mean something that is not a positive thing. And that's just a couple of the little teachings that he's brought. The biggest teaching that they have, and it's also something that a lot of elders talk about, this respect. Respecting the earth, respecting the water, respecting the air, respecting each other, respecting ourselves. We don't even respect ourselves. And we have to come back to that place of respecting ourselves and keeping ourselves in that respect and realizing that everything that is in this universe is a relative. And if we disrespect it, we have disrespected ourselves. And that's a big teaching. There is, we have a Choctaw teaching that one of the elders had told me about called Imahokse. And Imahokse means forget about it. And how this teaching goes is there was a man and his wife, and they were not doing good things. They were not doing good things to each other. They were not doing good things to other people. They were not doing good things for themselves. And the Bigfoot came and showed himself to this man. And so this man went to the elder and he said, the Bigfoot came to me. Why did the Bigfoot come to me? And the elder told him, Imahokse. And he said, Imahokse means forget about it. And he said, yes, forget about the things that you're doing. Don't be doing those things that are not respectful. And so he used the teachings of Imahokse, forget about it, to show that we need to forget about doing those disrespectful things to each other and to ourselves. And that's a message that many tribal nations and elders will tell you, that when the Bigfoot begins to come to people more and more and more, there's a message there. And they're telling us, get your act together. Look what you're doing. And so, it's a simple message with many layers to it.
Right. Now, when you speak about respecting ourselves, respecting the planet and the creatures upon the planet, isn't there some form of discipline one must have in order to understand what respect is all about?
Respect is holding something in a good way. I have a lot of people say to me, well, if I'm going to respect the earth and if I'm going to respect this, am I not going to be able to drive my car? Am I not going to be able to have running water in my house? Am I not going to be able to do this or that? And what I tell them is, what we have to do in this teaching is be conscious. Live a conscious life. When you turn that tap on to get in that shower, think about that water that's coming out. Be conscious. Thank that water. And be thankful that you have that. Don't waste it. Don't just stand there and let that water run over you and run over you and run over you and run over you. Be conscious. When you get in that vehicle to drive, be conscious about what you're doing. And that's one of the big things that we've been doing, is walking around unconscious in doing the things that we're doing, how we speak to another person. We do that so many times unconsciously. Things just come out of our mouth in a heartbeat. And when you're disagreeing with someone about something, things just begin to fly out of that mouth. Well, you stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. That's idiotic. That's disrespectful. Disagreeing is not disrespectful. It is how you disagree that creates disrespect. Mm-hmm. None of us have to agree on this planet. And I would say that there are not two people on this planet that believe exactly the same on everything that they believe.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, even if it's a minute difference, it is not the same. And so it's how we go about what we do that brings about being disrespectful.
Thank you for that. And now, what are they teaching you now? When was the last communication you've had with Kashima?
A lot of the teachings are personal teachings that help me to be in the space that I need to be in to do the things that I need to do, which is to literally get the message out that these are people. These are not a large, hairy, bipedal animal running around in the woods. These are people. And I run up against all kinds of people with all kinds of ideas. And there are things that he talks with me about how do I handle this and how do I understand this? And so there are personal teachings, but, he also has what I would call universal teachings about the planet and things of their people and how they relate in doing things. And so he's a multi-level teacher. A lot of it is personal teaching. And if we look at it in that way, everything in this universe begins with us. And who we are dictates what our lives are. People talk about peace all the time. If you want peace, be peace. If you want to be loved, love people. Love everything. Be what it is that you want. And, that's where we have to go. There are multi-layered teachings within those simple things of, how do you react? One of his teachings is about judgment. We judge everything as good or bad. And one thing that we do, we are quick to say, that's bad. Or we're quick to say, that's good. And how a judgment should be made is to look at something or someone and say, am I compatible with that thought, or am I not compatible with that thought, that person, or that thing? And if I am not compatible, then I take myself from it. I don't put my human judgment on it. I take myself from it. Now, does that mean that we're not supposed to be speaking out about things that we feel are not being done in a good way? No, it doesn't. But it does speak to how we go about those things. If you are having a disagreement with someone about something, if you are talking to that person how you talk to that person is going to dictate whether they're going to shut you out and not listen to anything you say, or whether maybe they just might listen to something that you say. And that goes the same for a protest. How we protest dictates whether somebody's going to listen or not listen.
Right, but with that, Arla, just really quick, if you don't mind, how does that work with people who are older in physical age who say, well, I guess I'm too old to change because I'm already set in my ways? Is that a bunch of crap, or can they really change and be a little more lighthearted if they choose to be?
Everybody can change. The only thing constant in this universe is change. There is nothing else in this universe that's constant besides change. So everyone has that ability to do that. If someone says, I can't change because this is how I believe, they've made the decision that they can't change. Does that mean that they couldn't be changed? No, it doesn't. It means that they're going to have to change their thought process to change and open up to that change. But the one thing that most people seem to fight the most is change. We don't want to change.
Why is that?
I think it's because we get comfortable in how we are. We know what the variables are. We know what the repercussions are of where we are at any given moment. When we change, or our change is given to us, the opportunity to change, we don't know how that's going to play out. And so most people will set in their particular way of thinking or being and not change because they're comfortable in that, and they don't know who they'll be if they change. They don't know if they'll like themselves if they change. And so people you're afraid to step into change because they don't know. They don't have that faith that whatever I go into, as long as I am in that space of listening to whomever you consider the creator, that, if you don't have that faith of walking into that, it could be pretty scary.
Right, so you're basically saying that the reason why people don't is because they are fearing that change. But, yeah, it's just so funny, though, and I've said that for years to people as well. The only constant in life is change, and why people fight so hard against it is just so funny. From the second that we are created, change happens. We never, ever stay the change or stay the same. We change from the moment that our spirit comes into being. It's a constant change. Right, and now we have about 7 minutes until the top of the hour here. Is there anything you would like to say before we begin the next hour? And are you available to go the long haul and hang out with us for the next hour? I'm available. I certainly am. I'm sitting outside in my swing, enjoying being outside and looking all around me. So, yeah, I would love to. One thing I would like to say about this Bigfoot phenomenon is so many people get caught up on this spiritual aspect of them. These are a flesh and blood people. They do have abilities that
they use that might be out of most people's thought process. I've seen so many things with them and talked to so many people who, have an actual physical sighting and then go, and then this happened. How did that happen? They were there, and then I looked and they weren't there. I didn't take my eyes off of them, but they weren't there. And so they do have abilities, and if we are going to truly understand who they are, we have to look at them in their totality of that flesh and blood being with the abilities. One of the things that Kashima has told me is that a lot of the things that they have retained we could do easily at one time. But we, as a species, as a whole, walked away from a lot of those things. And it's just a matter of us remembering those things in being able to do them. Medicine people have done things for forever. Shape-shifting, being able to be in one place, 1 minute and then somewhere else, in just a very short amount of time. And all of these things are things that we did at one time. They were natural things. They were not unnatural abilities that we did, but through many different reasons, we walked away from doing those things.
And you know what? When we come back from our break, Arla, I would like to talk more about that, if you wouldn't mind, because I'm very, very interested, and the idea intrigues me of what abilities we chose to walk away from that they still retain, your friends Kashima and all. And I'm, in my humble opinion, I feel that it was because we were, as a people, human race, I'm speaking about, we were usurped. We were basically taken over our minds, our hearts, our spirits, and we're still, we were being led around by the nose, but I would like to speak about that next hour and maybe come up to speed currently and discuss what they feel about the protests that are taking place, if they're aware of the protests that are taking place, how they feel about those things, and where we as a species are going from here, along with everything else on the planet, because in order for, when we grow and raise our vibration, in my humble opinion, everything else around us does as well. Animals, the flora, fauna, everything. But I would like to tie all that in together in the next hour. And Thomas or JP, if there's anything you guys would like to add here in the next, 3 minutes.
I do have to say, I will have to talk about the audio, or Thomas will never forgive me.
That's right. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. So it's Thomas' favorite thing, I think, that's ever happened to me, and he loves it. So we could talk about that as soon as we get back and go through that, and then we can end out with talking about, all of this, raising our vibrations, which they're very much into vibrational energy.
Right. And you know what? With that, we are hopefully going to be creating a page for our buddy here, Mr. Thomas Hughes, on wolfspiritradio.com, where he is able to upload pictures and MP3s, recordings, and whatnot. But if you have anything you would like to share with folks, picture-wise, recording-wise, please feel free to chip in if you would like.
Okay.
And if you're allowed.
Yeah. Yeah, there are some things that I won't, but I very well know what I'm supposed to and what I'm not supposed to. I'm a pretty good listener, so.
Very good. And maybe we can start this off a little bit early. We have 1 minute until the top of the hour, folks, from where I sit. So, JP or Joey, however you guys would like to take us out for this break.
Well, I'll put on a little bit.
I have a quick joke for you guys, and it is on top.
Wow, what was that?
It's coming.
I'm extremely proud, and the last stop is extremely proud to present Mitch Hedberg. I think Bigfoot is blurry. That's the problem. It's not the photographer's fault. Bigfoot is blurry, and that's extra scary to me. But there's a large, out-of-focus monster roaming the countryside. Run, it's Fuzzy, get out of here. Gotta go.
That's the late, great Mitch Hedberg. You are listening to Wolf Spirit Radio here at Revolution Radio, and I am reminding all the Revolution Radio listeners that Revolution Radio is 100% listener supported, so please, if you can, click a banner and make a contribution today. It's greatly appreciated. We will be right back at Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
You are listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
today is our special guest, Arla Collett Williams, who grew up in Oklahoma. She is also Cherokee descent, and she's had relations with Bigfoot. The folks out there hanging out in the woods that are all around us, watching everything we do, but very few of us ever get to meet. And Arla's journey started with a chance meeting when she was 6 years old. So, Arla, where would you like to start from here?
I think we need to get into how the audio came about that Thomas loves. I have a very good friend who is an Aleut Native young woman, and what she does is she teaches hand drum making, but she teaches it from the spiritual aspect of how Native people use that drum to connect in several ways, and how that drum beat is like the heartbeat of the Earth Mother. And so we connect in through that heartbeat. Well, she had begun her journeys of teaching, and I had decided that I would ask her to come here to Oklahoma and to teach a workshop. And I invited people to come to the workshop, and I did not have any idea that the Bigfoot would even be around to do anything. I actually thought they're probably going to leave because there's going to be like 20 people here, that some of them have never been here before, and so they're probably just going to scatter and go somewhere else. That didn't happen. Some of the people came in on Friday night and spent the night, and some of them camped out here. And then after the drum workshop, I have some very good friends who are Lenape pipe carriers, and they did a pipe prayer ceremony for us. We also had a fire prayer ceremony that night after the drum making, and we were all sitting out around the fire, just talking and enjoying each other. And one of the guys that had come had been a Bigfoot researcher for years. He had kind of stopped doing it in that mode, and he had thought in his mind, well, if I go, maybe I'll get to see something. And the whole drum workshop had nothing to do with the Bigfoot at all. Like I said, I didn't think that they would even be anywhere around. I thought that they would probably leave. But during the day, different ones had gotten glimpses of them. One girl saw one moving where we were sitting, and she was watching, and it was behind a tree, and then it came out, and I'm like, I can't believe they're doing this. This is just amazing. But you have to stop and think, this was a group of people who were respectful in all ways, who were enjoying just that being together and being in that space of that. Well, as I do many times, if I'm sitting around a fire and it's late at night, I might feel the urge to get up and walk off into the woods in the dark. I don't carry a flashlight. I usually just go. And that night, it was the same. I got up, walked off from the fire, and went off to the woods, the tree line, which is about 100 yards from where the fire is. And I walked off into the woods there, and they were there. Well, we had planned to, later that night, to go down and just sit on the ridge and just be down there. And I was told when I went down there that they did not want a lot of people down there, that they had their children, and that they didn't want us coming down there as a group and staying. And so I didn't have any problem with that. They were, comfortable with me being there. I did understand they did not want a big group of people. So at that point, I began to come back to where everyone was sitting. And this man, Stuart, was setting off kind of away from the fire, and he had this night vision thing, looking off into the woods to see if he could see anything. Of course, he wasn't seeing anything. And he got up, and he walked over to meet me, and he said, I just want to thank you for allowing me to come to this. This has been so special to me. I'm so excited for those who at least get to see one a little bit. I didn't really get to see anything, but just thank you, for opening your home to us and doing this. And he said, I just hope that sometime in my life that maybe they'll let me see them. And I looked at him, and it slipped out of my mouth. I said, come with me. And so I started to walk back off towards the woods. At that point, I didn't know if they would be there or not be there. And he had his night vision with him. And as we were walking off towards the woods, I said, I was going to say to him, no night vision, put your night vision away. And he had just stuck it up to his face and was looking through it when I said that. And he said, well, doesn't make any difference. It's not even working. So the night vision had just magically stopped working.
Wow.
So we walked on to the fence. When we got to the fence, you have to go down the fence line and around the gate to go down into the woods. This man has been in law enforcement all of his life. He carries a little gun in his side pocket. It goes with his billfold, his keys, everything else. It's just a natural thing for him to do. He never even thought about not having it. I mean, he puts it in there every day of his life. It's just what he does. I didn't know he had it. No one else knew he had it. But it was in a little pocket on the side of his pants. And as we walk out there, he got his first taste of mind speak. And they said to him, what are you doing with that gun? And he stopped at that moment and realized that they were questioning him as to why he had that gun. Now, at this time, I did not know he had a gun in his pocket. He did not say that to me, and I did not know that until after it was over. But they began to question him about that. And he said, I felt like, man, if I ever tell the truth, now's the time to do it. So he told them, explained to them, I've carried this, for years and years. It's a natural thing. I'm sorry that I have it. I certainly don't intend to hurt anyone with it. It's just something I did. And so then they said a few more things to him. I said to him at that point, do you want to go around on the other side of the fence and kind of go into the woods? And so we did. Well, we were standing there, and at that point, that is where this audio will begin as to what happened when we had gone around the fence and gone into the woods. So you can play the audio now, and then I can explain anything that you might need explaining after you play it.
Sure, okay. JP, do you have that on cue?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
1, 2, I can see it look like a third behind the unbelievable. No pictures, just sound.
Just listening.
Unreal.
Just listening.
Wow, I can see that one moving.
I know.
He's kind of bobbing up. He's crouched, but he's...
Yes. He's turned around 2 or 3 times and looked back behind him.
Yeah, right. But I can see him right there. Wow.
Shake the tree for me. You're right there by the trees.
I mean, Arla, I can't hardly believe this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see him.
I heard him move, didn't I? I heard you. Be careful. Be careful.
They're good at crouching and hiding.
Yeah, they are.
Wow.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Oh, man. Okay, I'm turning it off. Oh, that's beautiful.
Are you recording?
I got that one. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow. Wow.
Just too cool.
Who is that that's doing that? Do you recognize the voice? Unbelievable. He's right out there.
I know. He does a good owl, doesn't he?
Oh, man. Well, it's got a
An off.
yeah, it's got that deep.
Yep.
Wow. Wow.
Can we come back in?
He's right down the path right there.
I know.
It's
Yep.
I guess it was pleasing to them that I was swaying with them. He's getting closer.
Somebody's leaving. Bye, somebody.
Troy does a pretty good imitation.
Okay, Troy's not moving.
Well, I'm going to shut it off. Thank you. Thank you. Unbelievable.
Yeah, you can hear the excitement in his voice when he is seeing them.
He was literally laughing, crying. I can't even begin to express how that affected him. He will tell you now, there is no fear in his life about anything. He is in a space now of complete acceptance of life, and it's almost like he says, reborn. I've got this peace. I've got this understanding. I've got this knowing that everything is in divine order.
Indeed. Thank you so much for that. That is great. And Arla, I would like to ask you, would you like to take some questions from the audience if they choose to call in?
Oh, sure. No problem at all.
Okay, folks. Well, that call-in number is 347-688-2902. That's 347-688-2902. And in Skype, if you would like to get in touch with us that way, you can look up Freedom Screen in Skype. So with that, please continue, Arla.
This, like I said, this whole thing was not planned. I was as surprised as anyone that happened. When that happened, to the left of us was a juvenile. To the right of the trail was a younger juvenile with a very small one. And those are the two that they kept looking over their shoulder, like back behind, looking for a parent. And then there was one down the opening through the trail who had stepped out, a large one. And you hear him say something about swaying. It must have been pleasing that I was swaying with him. This large one had stepped out and was swaying, and Stuart asked me about that, them swaying, and I said, well, just sway with him. And then he began to do that, and then the larger male stepped out back behind this large male and began to do the out call. Now, we were told we could audio, but no pictures could be taken. And that you hear him saying, no pictures, no pictures. And the reason he said that was he was assuring them that we were not trying to take pictures. And, I said, we're just listening. And that's what we were doing. What I got from that whole thing that happened, one of the things was they had their children there watching us. We were being used as a teaching tool for their children to say, these are the kind of people who we can work with. These are the kind of people that you can trust. And so not only were we being allowed something, they were actually using us as a teaching tool.
Very cool. Now, what is it with pictures they don't like in general?
There's several different thoughts along that line. A lot of old tribal people didn't want their pictures taken because they thought it captured their soul.
Right.
The one thing that the Bigfoot do know is when good pictures come out, that will tell a whole lot of things about them. They haven't been ready for this to happen. Now, with this DNA project that is hopefully coming out, and hopefully it will prove what I've always believed and what I know is that they are a people. They are another us. There are aspects of them that are definitely human. Is that by doing this, and when the photos, the good photos come, that will be the proof. And the one thing that will give them is protection. They have no protection now. There are people out there literally hunting them to kill one, to be able to say, I killed a Bigfoot, I'm the first one, brought one in, and because of the instabilities of the energy on the earth right now, and because of choices that some of the Bigfoot people made, that is possible now. And it has actually happened very recently. And so they know that the possibilities of this coming out could help them. But they also know that if this comes out and if this is proven, their family lives will be changed forever. Because you know how we are when we find something out. We want to know more. And that's why there are so many of us now who are coming together to help educate people about who they are and being respectful of them. They don't cause us problems now. They won't cause us problems then. And hopefully we won't cause them problems. Can you imagine the effect on humanity if this large, hairy, bipedal animal monster myth that is out there in the woods is said to be human in many aspects? What is that going to do to humanity's thoughts about who they think they are?
Right. And with that, I feel that it would have as much impact as full disclosure, the governments of the world coming together saying that we are not the only ones out here on this blue little marble floating in space. It would be something akin to that. Do you think, with all of the protests that are taking place now, some people feel that there are going to be riots that are going to stem from this, agent provocateurs, the whole gambit, and there are others who are saying that when this takes place, people will start taking refuge out in the countryside, in the woods, the mountains. What kind of impact do these people in the woods here, the Bigfoot, what kind of impact do they feel that's going to have on their living situation right now?
They've already had a huge impact on their life. What have we done but continued to build more and more and more homes and businesses and buildings and cutting down areas and putting up buildings and other things. They've already been impacted. I believe that if someone is living in the woods and being sustainable, there will be no problem living with them. We did it before. It is something that we have done in our past. We lived alongside of them. And the impact will come from whoever these people are and, what they can accept. There's millions and millions and millions of acres of places where the Bigfoot can go and be sustainable and stay away from us. We're making it harder and harder for them to do. Plus, people are out there looking for them now in such great numbers. Research people who want to prove they're either a large, hairy, bipedal animal, or what are they? Are they a cryptid of some kind, or, what are these beings that are out there? They know full well that they have to get to us. They have to get us to listen, because they know that we hold the key to the healing of this planet or the destruction of it. And if we can't grasp that and try to come about in a better way, and to begin to raise our vibrations and to work with higher vibrations and not all of these base vibrations, that, who knows what will happen? I don't know. They don't know. No one knows what can happen. We can only guess and say it's this scenario, it's that scenario. We don't know, and we won't know until it does happen. And the one thing that the elders talk about in prophecies and things, and I've talked to a lot of elders about prophecies, and some of the elders that I've talked to will say prophecies are giving you an idea of what the possibilities are if you can't change some things. Look at what you can do to create a better way than what this prophecy is. And so what we have to do is to begin to raise those vibrations by being respectful, But can you imagine if everyone on this earth was respectful of each other? How that would change the vibrations?
Be still my beating heart.
Yeah.
and
For
with,
sure.
Right, and with that, Arla, folks, you are currently listening to Wolf Spirit Radio, being streamed on Free Thinking Radio and Revolution Radio. Folks, get out there. Revolution Radio is totally listener supported. Hit that donate button. We also have a donate button, if I remember correctly, on freethinkingradio.com. Every penny helps, trust me. And I need to mention, Arla, that here we need to wrap things up with Revolution Radio at 1:45. But we will still be broadcasting on wolfspiritradio.com and freethinkingradio.com for the last 15 minutes of the show. And with that, please take it away again, Arla.
Yes, what, Thomas?
I was going to ask you a question because there's something you said that is very appropriate or very accurate in looking at their people and looking at our people. The thing you said, and I wanted you to comment on this, is that you said humans adapt their environment to them, whereas the hairy folks always adapt to their environment. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Well, one of the things I have people say to me, why in the world do they live like they do? Why are they out there in the woods doing that? Why don't they come in and do things different and be more like us? And one of the things I tell people is, okay, let's put us beside them. Here we are. We are supposed to be very smart, sentient beings. We are literally killing each other. We are tearing our planet up. We are living in broken lives. We're at the doctor. We've got to have drugs. We've got to have this. We've got to have that. It's a constant thing of we have to have. And let's look at them. They live a sustainable life. They don't have to go to Walmart. They don't have to go to the pharmacy. They don't need anything other than what is provided there for them. They're not trashing the earth. They're not trashing each other. They're not trashing us. Who's the smarter of the two people? And, people will stop and go, well, but there is no but to this. They are a sustainable people. I've got a funny story that I tell about this one this farmer, who had several acres, and he farmed several of the acres. And there was one little pasture way at the back of his place that he didn't use at all. But he thought he had to keep it mowed down, or brush hogged, mowed down. And he was complaining because every time he would go back to brush hog this, that they were throwing sticks and rocks at him while he was doing this. So he contacted somebody and said, somebody needs to come get these things and get them out of here. Every time I go down there to mow that, they're throwing sticks and they're throwing rocks at me and everything else. So someone goes out to check about this. What they find out is this particular small area of pasture that he's mowing down has echinacea in it. You know what echinacea is? It's a natural medicine, an immune system builder. It had several other things growing in it that could be utilized. So this guy was back there literally mowing down their pharmacy. And they were throwing sticks and rocks at him because he was doing it. They talked this man into not brush hogging that. He didn't have to. He just did it to be doing it. He never had a problem with them again. What they were trying to tell him was, you are taking something that helps us to be sustainable. And so that is the kind of life they live. They live in intact groups where the whole family takes care of each other. They live in a way that we need to really look at some of the things that they're doing and how they're living and realize that we need to come back to some of these ways and think about how this is.
Well, pretty soon I feel like we're not going to have a choice, Arla. That's the way things are being geared up to play out, in my humble opinion. But has Kashima or any other of the folk actually talked to you about where they came from? Were they part of this planet for a long time, or did they come from somewhere else?
One of the things that Kashima told me about his people is that they are the Shamuna people, which means the people from the place of two moons. Now, for me, that speaks of Star Nation people. A lot of people freak out when you start talking Star Nation. They're like UFOs and aliens and all this other stuff. For me, the Star Nation people are just relatives. And that's how we were taught. They were a relative that lived somewhere else. So when he tells me that they are the Shamuna people, the people of two moons, it tells me that they came at one time from the heavens, from somewhere else. Now, how long ago that is, I believe so very long ago that we probably can't even fathom, because there have been so many different eras on this planet other than the era that we are familiar with.
Did they speak of the reasons why they decided to stay here? They love the earth. They actually love this planet and how it is. They have always been earth keepers. And so it was a natural thing for them to do, to be an earth keeper and to want to be here. And so it was a choice that they made. And, you know, for whatever that choice was, it was a choice not only for them, but for us too. Indeed. What do they speak to you about? Do they know of the protests that are currently taking place in all the cities here in Canada, in the U.S. and Canada and abroad? And if they do, what do they have to say about said protests?
They don't get extremely, I guess, involved in a lot of that goes on. The teachers know things that are going on because of their contact with us, and so they know that that is a human progression, I guess, if you want to put it that way. They look at that as that same thing of them knowing that, you know, we hold that key to the healing or the destruction. And that we are going to play that out in ever what way we decide to play it out. If it's through protests, if it's through whatever we choose to do. They are never happy when there's disharmony. It's not in their nature to want disharmony. But they do understand from watching us. Some of them do. I won't speak for all of them because that would be incorrect for me to speak for all of them because I don't know all of them. But what the ones that I do know and what I know of that, they understand us far better than we understand ourselves.
Right. Now, since we're all connected here, we have about 4 or 5 more minutes before we end our broadcast here with Revolution Radio, and they can catch us on Freethinking Radio and or wolfspiritradio.com. Arla, is there any way you can give out your information again to the folks before we sign off with Revolution Radio and continue broadcasting for the last 15 minutes?
I didn't understand what you said.
Can you give your information to folks out there? Do you have a website and things of that sort you can share with the listening audience?
Okay. We are working on a website right now with some different people. I am on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook as Arla Collett Williams. Send me a friend request. Let me know where you heard me. And a lot of my teachings I do through Facebook. I, also post photos and things like that. Be aware, my family's on that Facebook page. And I love music, so you will have to put up with my different tastes in music if you become a friend on Facebook. But it's a wonderful tool to use and not let it use you. But it's a wonderful way of connecting with a lot of people who are working, in this realm and want to know more. And then when the website gets up, well, then I can tell everybody, hey, we've got our website up, and you can go there.
Right. And will you be posting more audio and things of that sort when you get your website up and running?
Oh, yeah. And, there are things that I post on my Facebook page. I said I'm a pretty open book. The majority of what I get gets posted on Facebook. I have a lot of photos on there. Also, I post when I'm on the radio because I am on the radio once a week with Alex Midnight Walker on Midnight Walkers on Blog Talk. Also, when I travel and teach, because I do travel throughout the United States and teach, that will be on there, where I'm going to be, what I'm doing, and that type of thing. So when you become a Facebook friend, you have walked into my life pretty much.
Well, I guess I walked into your life because I'm friends with you on Facebook now.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
And
now,
everybody that's listening, be sure, and when you send a face request, be sure and don't tell her that you know me, because she may not friend you that way. I'm sorry, I just had to put that in there.
Yeah.
Well, I'd just like to say from all of us over here at Revolution Radio that it's been fantastic having you guys here today. Roger Silva co-hosting for Dave Corso and Wolf Spirit Radio. You got JP pulling the boards over there for their Wolf Spirit Radio. We'd like to thank you guys for being here. Thomas, thank you as well.
I'm glad everybody on Revolution Radio got to hear me again.
and I'm not. Is it Aria?
Arla.
Arla. I'm sorry. I would like to thank you for being here at Revolution Radio as well.
Well, thank you for having me.
It was fantastic. It was a great show. It was awesome.
Thank you, Joy, for all your hard work.
Hey, I do what I do. It's awesome doing this. I love doing this patch thing. Once we get it a little more tighter, I think we'll pull this off quite well. It's always fun having you guys. Oh, yeah, ditto. And this show has, it's gone off with very few glitches today, and that makes me very happy. Yes, it was virtually pain-free. All right, you guys, you have a great day. Thank you so much. You too.
All right, let me see.
Good night, Joey. Thank you.
Joey, you ready for me to hang up? Yeah?
Oh, Joey is gone.
Okay. I hang up the call on Revolution Radio, and I've hung up on Joe, so now it's just us on Wolf Spirit Radio.
Yes, it is. Now, Arla, I would, if you wouldn't mind, like to speak a little bit about the intimidation tactics that have been kind of brought against you with coming out regarding this information, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, it was something that Kashima told me from the very beginning, that what we would be doing, there would be people on both sides who didn't understand what it was that we were trying to do as far as bring the message that they have of respect, of letting people know that they are a people. They're not a monster or an animal or anything else. They are people, and they are due protection and respect. Anytime you know yourself, you speak out about something that someone else doesn't think you should be speaking out about, you're going to be called to task on it. I've had people threaten me in various ways to not be talking about them either way as a wonderful being that they are, or that they are not an animal. The one thing I can say to that is I'm not going to stop speaking up for them. I'm not going to stop sharing the things that they've given me to share. My elders taught me, when you're given a gift, you share that gift. You don't keep that gift for yourself. And I believe that this is a gift that they've given me and allowed me to be whatever part of their life that I am. And I don't scare easily to begin with. But I also know in my heart that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And as long as I feel that in my heart and I'm honoring that, I can't stop doing what it is I'm doing, regardless of if either side, the side that says I'm running their lives or the side that says they're nothing but an ape in the woods. It doesn't make any difference. It's the same energy trying to stop me from doing what it is I'm doing. As I said, I do it because it's what's in my heart to do. I'm not gaining any fame or fortune or anything else. I'm putting myself out there where I'm getting threatened by people. So, I could stop and say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I mean, this is getting too scary. But like a lot of people who are out there, this is my form of protesting for something that needs to come into our lives that's good. And
right.
To raise our vibrations. This is what I'm doing in that. And I made a remark to someone one time. They were talking about, well, what happens if, there's this big push against the Bigfoot, and they're going to go out and they're going to do all this. And I said, well, I guess that will be my first formal protest, and I will be out there speaking my truth. I won't be calling people names or anything else, but I will be speaking my truth. And yeah, I may go down as being the woman who was jailed because she stood up for Bigfoot. And if that happens, it happens. But that's how passionate I am about sharing this and about doing it in a good way, because it is about raising our vibrations to that higher level so that we can, as a species, do this in a good way.
Right. Thank you for that. I have to say also, isn't there something to be said that they know that you're coming out with this information. They're helping you coming out with this information. But do you also feel a sense of being protected by them when you are coming out with this information?
Oh, I'm very well protected. I am very, very well protected. But I've known for years how to place sacred space around me. And if I feel I'm in a situation that is actually threatening to me physically, I can put a sacred space around myself, and it will be fine. One thing that has happened to me was I had to do an interview with some people, and there were some people there at this place where I was doing this interview that were not happy with the things that I was doing. And this one woman had come and was standing kind of back behind the cameraman and was staring at me, actually trying to intimidate me or unnerve me. And the people who were doing the interview had asked if I would sing my prayer song. When I go to talk or speak, I always sing my prayer song, which is a song that was given to me at one of our grandmother gatherings. And this song asks for peace on earth and sends out that love and prayers. And as this person stared at me with intimidation and everything else, I stared at this person back, looked them in the eyes, and started to drum and sing this prayer song. And I sent that prayer to this person, sending this person that love that's in that song, that asking for peace. This person dropped their head and turned their back to me. They couldn't stand in the face of that higher vibrational love. And that's where we have to go. I wasn't feeling bad towards that person or anything else. I wanted that person to feel the love that comes when that prayer song is used. And that's that higher vibrational love where we have to go, even though we don't agree with what someone else is doing, or if they're doing something to harm us, that we continue to send out that higher vibrational love and prayers to them. If I had thrown back to that person hate and animosity and anger and everything else, all I would have done was affirmed to them that I was not in the space that I should be in and that I could be intimidated. And like I said, nothing is going to stop me from speaking out. I do it because it comes from my heart. I do it because I said I would do it. I full well know not everyone's going to understand what I'm doing. Sometimes I even question myself, are you doing the best thing for them? But the only answer I can get is you're doing what you know to do. That's what I'm doing.
Very good. And we need more people like you out there, Arla. We really do. And they are stepping forth. They are starting to step forth now. And in my humble opinion, I feel that they feel now is the time to get out there. Some of us have been doing it for a little longer, and people have called us crackpots, what have you. But we're still out there in the face of all the negativity, and we're getting our messages out there. Even though we may not agree on everything, we're still out there, all of us, working as a cohesive unit.
Yes, we are. Even though we are not actually doing the same things, we are all part of that puzzle, and all those pieces are coming together to complete that puzzle in a good way. And it's all the same energy of sending out that higher vibrational feelings, and that's where we have to go. And that's the basic message of what I've been taught from them, is that's where you have to go. You have to be in that space. You have to release all of these things that are not serving a good purpose.
Yes, indeed. And with that, we have about 6 minutes left. And before I forget, I would like to thank Mr. Dave Corso again. I hope you're feeling better there, buddy. And without you, the show would not be taking place. I would like to thank Arla for being here as our guest today, Thomas for helping us meet Arla, and for JP and Joey with their technical skills in helping to stream this audio today. And are there any parting words that you might have for everyone in general here, Arla? We have about 5 minutes left.
Wait a minute.
Okay, sure.
Did you say every moron?
No.
Okay, it sounded like you slipped your tongue there for a second. I just want to say I've been really quiet, and I'm very good at getting out of the way, but I'm stepping in the way just for a moment, Arla, to say how much gratitude, how much thanks I'm giving to you for coming on and speaking about this today.
Well, thank you, Thomas, for pointing me in this direction. It surely wasn't something I expected, but then, we kind of talked about that and the synchronicity of how Spirit uses us when we are in that flow of doing what it is that we've said we're going to do.
Yes. Okay, well, I think Roger wants any words of wisdom, parting comments, or cheap shots you might have at this point.
Yeah, like every moron.
It's funny because I have been coined as the Aretha Franklin of the Bigfoot, with respect. So that's that thing, is learn to respect yourself, number one. Look at yourself and care about yourself and who you are, and, open your heart up. And when you do that, my elders always told me, if you honor yourself, you won't dishonor anyone else, because to dishonor someone else dishonors yourself. And that's where we have to be. We still have to walk our talk and not just say we're going to do this or say we're that, but to be that. And that's that same thing of, if you want peace, be peace. That doesn't mean that you can't speak up, but it means be peaceful in your heart when you're speaking up about things that you feel are not done in a good way. And if you don't feel loved, then begin to send out love and to be in prayer. And one of the things that my ancestor grandmothers told me about prayer is that there are times when you feel the need to prayer, to speak to a creator, whomever your creator is, even if it is within you, is sometimes you don't know. You're so confused about what it is you need to be speaking or praying. And they always told me, pray for the prayer. Pray for the prayer. And when you begin to do that, words come that we need to say. Maybe those words that we say are the ones that soothe us and mean the most to us and help us the most. And that's a big thing. And Thomas and I have talked a lot about that respect and being in a respectful place and realizing it's past time to raise our vibrations, and we can't raise our vibrations with hate and anger and trying to hurt other people and do things in a bad way. Those are low vibrations, and we've got to get past those vibrations and get to those higher ones, because change is going to happen. It's going to happen.
It's happening
whether you want it to or not. It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Arla, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, JP. Thank you, Dave. Thank you to all of our listeners for being here with us today. It's been great. And please tune in tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central Time. Don't know what we're going to be discussing yet, folks, but I'm sure we'll come up with something. We always do. And with that, please take us on out, JP. And once again, thank you, everyone, for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Where's the